Thinking Basketball Podcast. My name is Ben. Welcome back to our first playoff show of 2026. My goodness, as of recording this, we are 11 games into the playoffs. Cody, this is always one of the most exciting and most difficult podcasts to do because we usually record it while the next set of game twos are about to go on, and things happen so fast in the postseason that by the time I'm finishing recorded with the show and edited, there's like another huge thing to react to. So we are done with all the game ones. We had 3 game twos last night. And here's my big question for you that I've been thinking about for the last 24 to 48 hours. What have you learned? What are your big takeaways from what we've seen so far? And really, if you go back to what we've talked about throughout the year and what we talked about on our mega long preview episode, looking at the whole playoffs from a zoomed out picture last week, has anything changed for you? Have you looked at a team and said, ooh, this team or player has moved up or moved down, which is changing my perception of how the next few rounds of the playoffs are going to take shape, let alone this first round set of series that we're looking at?
All right. So I'm going to answer the first one, like kind of the big picture things that I'm noticing. Because when I was watching it, I think this specifically happened when I was watching Lakers-Rockets. And then it happened to another degree watching Hawks-Knicks. And it's the importance not just of being able to space the floor, but passing and pushing the pace on offense, right? And you gain such an advantage. And I think there's kind of an old adage that's like, oh, the pace slows down in the playoffs. You can't push it so much. That kind of offense isn't going to work, blah, 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 blah. But actually, it's almost the other way around. Defenses are so good and so dialed in that if you slow down the pace too much and you just walk it up and you let the other team set up their defenses in the half court, you're going to have a much tougher time. But if you grab, you kick ahead, you push it, you get that team scrambling. Or for the Lakers, I guess the Lakers do the same sort of thing. But if you have a couple of guys that can swing the rock around, bing, bang, boom, like it doesn't matter if the spacing isn't great. Like you can just find some openings when the other team is kind of scrambling around. So that's me hovering above the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, shooting is great. But man, just like the Pacers last year, kick it ahead, scramble it around on offense, and just move that puppy around and see what cracks you can find in the defense.
So that was the importance of passing.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? How would you summarize the?
I would say pushing the pace. So they're kind of a 1-2 thing.
Okay.
There's the importance of passing, and that kind of leads into like look for an advantage, not just in necessarily taking shots in transition, but kicking it ahead so you can kind of get your offensive set before the defense is really set.
And you said you were going to answer my 2 questions. I didn't know I had 2 questions. So what were my 2 questions?
Okay, so you said that. The other thing is what's changed so far, right? What things...
Yeah. No, I see what you did. You made my question much better than it was. Yeah, I was actually just thinking about like, has something changed with any of these teams or multiple teams? And you're actually getting to something that we should discuss, which is for me, the biggest thing was what teams are going to look different and how's the game going to be officiated differently. And what was the game? What is it, a Saturday game? The first game in the East that was absolutely crazy physical. Do you remember the game? We actually were texting about it. I know it's a long, long time ago. It's about 7 playoff games ago.
Pistons-Magic, is that the game?
No, it wasn't Pistons-Magic. Pistons-Magic was Sunday. There was a game on Saturday that was so physical. I was thinking like, okay, they're actually ramping it up to another level, which might help the more physical teams. But that was actually the only game that I thought was officiated that way. There has been some additional physicality throughout most of the games, but that's something that I think if I had to summarize my big takeaway here, Cody, we'll get to the teams in a second, but at a league-wide level, it's that the basketball looks really similar to the regular season. It looks really similar. Obviously, you're going to have more switching. You're going to have more tactical stuff in these series, as we'll talk about. That is something you cannot change when you get into a 7-game series versus night-to-night rotating the schedule. We know that. But in terms of the sets teams were running, the style of play, the way the game was officiated, who's successful out there, it felt pretty similar to the regular season for the most part. So that's something I'm going to continue to monitor in this next week or so in terms of sort of like the overall league-wide game state. Because sometimes I get whiplash. We go from the regular season, watch like the first weekend of the playoffs. I'm like, this is a different year. This is a different sport. We've jumped 10 years, and I didn't quite have that this year.
I think the team that I was kind of looking for to see if that was going to happen, like my barometer team for the physicality, was just the Rockets again. right? Because coming from last season, we talked about it before, that Warriors-Rockets series in round 1 was like a football game. I was going to say a football match, but then people all across the world be confused about what sport I'm talking about. So a football game. But this year, going against the Lakers, I was just wondering if they would do the same sort of thing. That's like, we're just going to overwhelm this team that definitely doesn't have the creators right now. They're missing 2 of their 3 best offensive players, and we're just going to use their size and physicality and just beat you down. I just didn't feel like that was the case during the Rockets-Lakers game. And, you have to pick and choose during this weekend. I didn't watch Suns-Thunder, but I kind of thought that has like high football potential too. But from like the brief clips I was watching, that didn't quite seem to hit that level either. And I don't know if that's because it's the Dylan Brooks of it, and I kind of expected some of that, but I'm kind of using those 2 series as like, how physical are things going to get in the first round?
I know the problem here. It wasn't a game from Saturday. It was last week's Hornets Heat play-in game that was just ramped up to another. That game was insane. That game was absolutely crazy. And I feel like that game has actually been the peak for physicality and for this kind of like, oh, this feels different than the regular season. Whereas the games over the weekend, good intensity, great crowds, good flow. But from a basketball strategy standpoint, I'm still looking at that going like, okay, so I still mostly like the teams from the regular season, except for the team or 2 that I've changed my mind on.
Who have you changed your mind on?
So you want me to go first here? So
absolutely.
I mean, maybe you've changed your mind on no one.
I guess I'm going to throw some more flowers at the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay,
first of all,
we can get to them. Yeah,
I'm just mad. Like here's the thing: the game that I cannot have be a good game is the Monday night game before we record. Like the 9:30 slot the night before we're going to record a podcast, there's no way I'm going to be able to watch it and then go to work and do the thing. So of course it ends up being game 2 Wolves Nuggets. Of course the Wolves end up coming back and winning it. So, wasn't able to watch that one. So that's just what do you call it? You have a scheduled loss, Ben. That's what that was for me. But the Timberwolves are the team I'm changing the most on, I think.
The game of the Knicks, we have to talk about the Knicks-Hawks game because I think that might have been the most tactical game we have. We have a video coming out shortly for our members, patreon.com/thinkingbasketball, or YouTube members if you just want videos and no other stats and all the other stuff we have at Patreon. That game really got into a chess match down the stretch, and we'll talk about that. To me, Cody, the Detroit Pistons are the team that I went into the tournament thinking they had some finals equity. I think I was higher on them than a lot of people because of their defensive performance, because of their physicality, and because they've played top teams really well throughout the year. And most importantly, the Pistons need to win the possession game to really play their game. Those extra 3 or 4 shots a game they generate on average. I had the stat somewhere at some point in time. It got them like 11 extra wins if you were to just look at efficiency, right? Because when you get 4 extra shots, you can miss some more shots. You don't have to be as efficient with your shots. And a normal team will win a couple games throughout the year where they have a lower true shooting percentage or something like that. But the Pistons, it just allows them to overcome this efficiency gap that they basically have. And not only did things go sideways against the Magic in terms of their spacing, in terms of some of their defensive stuff, but they didn't even win the possession battle in that game. The Magic had more shot, meaning when you look at the net turnovers and the way the offensive and defensive rebounds play out, I want to say off the top of my head, the Magic took something like 98 shots or 2-shot free throws in the game, and the Pistons had 96. That is very uncharacteristic for Detroit. So there were a lot of things about that game that we broke down in the video we did for members on the game. First and foremost, tip of the cap to Jamal Mosley for not only going with the obvious and saying, we're going to ignore Asar Thompson or all these shooters. We don't care about these shooters. You guys can't shoot. Like, we don't even care. Tobias Harris, please prove you can make a shot under pressure, and then I will come guard you. But also, something that I'm going to throw a lob your way, Cody, is that instead of the traditional putting a big or whatever on Asar, they put Jalen Suggs, a guard, on Asar, and they said, you roam around like you're trying out for all-state free safety. back in your glory days. Is he from Minnesota? Was it
He is,
Minnesota
yeah.
glory days? Yeah, there you go.
Minnehaha Academy. Yep,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yes, the star of Minnesota high school football. So he was just roaming around out there like Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed, or sorry, football people, I don't know any more contemporary players than those two all-time great safeties, but it was amazing.
Listen, I couldn't stop texting you watching this game. I was watching it a little bit delayed so I can skip all of the commercials. But if I had seen this game while I was preparing my Thinkies ballot before, things would have been switched around because Jalen Suggs, he was not healthy throughout the entire season. He came out like he was the most healthy he's ever been. He was shot out of a cannon. And I think even in that first quarter alone, he has multiple plays that, like, if you were to flag it, if you were to tag it, take notes, whatever else, that you would just categorize it of being like extremely high level, impossible type stuff. We're talking about like he's hanging out at the nail, right? Jalen Duren's down to the basket, flies down there as the point guard, blocks him at the rim, right? We're talking about a pick six just flying up, maybe not a great pass that he picks off, but still going all the way down to the other end. Dive, like full-blown diving, getting on the ground, like multiple plays like that, where because he doesn't have to worry about recovering straight to Asar Thompson's body, he can just kind of be free to do all this kind of stuff. And he did it with about as much energy as anyone has played with during these playoffs so far. Like, honestly, if I were to point out my favorite performance I've watched over the first weekend of the NBA playoffs, Jalen Suggs would be number one. Like, it was just incredible and honestly pretty inspiring to see a player like that doing that against a team who has hung their hat on defense and motor and intensity all season. So yeah, that's my starting point. Jalen Suggs just had like an incredible defensive game for a guard.
You don't think it was just the perfect scenario for him to just be unleashed and have to, let me check my notes here, not guard anyone for the entire game? It's just like a perfect scenario for him to rain hell all over the court.
Listen, it's the Amari Stoudemire with Steve Nash thing, right? The fact that you can use somebody like Steve Nash and maximize exactly what you're doing to the max, like I'm gonna count that as a win. The fact that you are good enough defensively as a guard, I'm gonna say that once again, a 6'4" guard to just fly around and do that. I mean, you can't just make somebody do that. You can't just have any single random player do that. The fact that he was able to ramp it up and do that when they called on him, that's what I found the most impressive.
Yeah, the guard thing is extremely rare and should absolutely be called out. The other part of this with Jamal Mosley, schematic-wise, is that allowed them to switch more pick and rolls. So instead of having like Wendell Carter Jr. on Asar Thompson, and Paolo on Duren or some other big strong body, they say, okay, yeah, so we are willing to at times switch this pick and roll with Wendell Carter Jr. And the whole thing just choked off the Cade Duren screen and roll game. And Cade is so good that what did he end up with, like 39 points? And he still kind of, you felt him throughout the game, and he kept them in the game at stretches, but the space in the lane was not there for Jalen Duren to do anything on offense. He's not good enough on defense to have games like that. And so the totality of this thing with like, who are the Pistons going to be able to put out there? What lineup, Cody? What lineup can this team put out there to figure out how to get the right balance of defense and shooting and spacing? Because I think they can win this series going forward. They could have won game one. The Magic had some, great shots. Paolo Banchero played a fantastic game, and he still took a bunch of Paolo shots that just went in. And you're like, okay, well, in game two or game three, are you going to be able to make a bunch of fadeaway long twos? Probably not. But his decision-making on a bunch of critical passes and how they defended him really burned the Pistons defense. I think some of the weaknesses that we haven't talked about too much over the years because we love the strengths with Asar Thompson and his awareness and things like that, that showed up. And so it's like, okay, the big takeaway for me is Detroit has less championship equity in the Eastern bracket right now because a series against a team like Cleveland is going to be harder, to say nothing of the Celtics or even the Knicks or whoever else comes out on the other side of that bracket. And then I would say Cleveland has got to be a big winner from the first 3 days of the playoffs, right? They're playing a team that without Emmanuel Quickley is completely overmatched. So this is a perfect setup for the Cavs to get some playoff confidence, get some playoff momentum that they've been lacking for a long time, get healthy, something they've been trying to do all year while the playoffs are ramping up. And then they could potentially see Detroit in the next round or an 8-seeded Orlando team that's up and down all over the place. Orlando can't shoot either. They don't have shooters on the court either. And so if you're Cleveland, you can sit back and you can potentially get rest and scout one of these teams that, even if I think the Pistons could still make it to the conference finals, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not throwing them out after one game at all. I think they can win this series. I would still make them the favorite to win this series. But if you're Cleveland, being able to look at that and go, oh my goodness, how many holes can I poke and use schematically? That's my biggest takeaway from the first. I have a secondary one, but that's probably my biggest one from the opening weekend, that Eastern Conference Cleveland Cavalier Detroit Piston dynamic.
Well, here's a question that I have right now. And again, I don't want to overreact to one game, but the fact that the Magic were able to pull that off while also getting to this point, like I think I bet a bunch of people wrote them off in the play-in tournament where they expected the Hornets to knock them out, right? So they're on a little bit of a streak right now. But last season, like we go back 2 seasons actually, their defense is like 4 points better than league average. Last season, it's basically 5 points better than league average. This season, right around 2, right? So more of a dip than we're used to, right? And of course, we all wrote off the Magic all year. None of us were impressed with them. I was very excited about them going into the season. I thought the Bane trade was going to be huge. But as we talked about, Suggs wasn't healthy. Franz wasn't healthy. Isaac didn't look the same. Banchero was in and out of the lineup. Should we not have written them off? Should we have actually been like, this is kind of an injury-ridden season, instead of being like, oh, Mosley's got to get down there, we got to trade one of them? Like, did we miss something and kind of write them off too early, or what's going on here, Ben?
No, they should have been written off. There was all this stuff about the team quitting on the coach or the coach losing the locker room. That is a death knell, right? That's a big deal in basketball. That dynamic with the coach and the locker room and the trust and the buy-in. Now, I'm not shocked they beat the Hornets at all. I actually had some people had texted me about my gut, and I was like, "Wow, the Hornets are a better team." But have you seen the NBA? What could happen is the Hornets could lose by 30 because the Magic just come out with some big giant FU situation that we've seen before. But you actually said a bunch of really important things that are more subtle in that layout you provided. We've talked about how good they've been with Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner before. Franz Wagner has come out of nowhere. He was shelved for the year. He played those 2 weird games in Germany, and then he was never back. I don't know if he played 1 or 2 more games the rest of the way, and it just was not clear if Franz Wagner was going to be able to play, and he was huge, I thought, yesterday. And if you're going to get really good decision-making, Paolo Banchero, for where he is as a player, you're going to get that kind of balance. You're going to get the healthiest possible Jalen Suggs you can get. You're going to get Paolo Banchero, and you're going to get a strategic advantage in a good game from some of the other role players. I mean, you're right. It's not a 40-win team. It is a good, skilled, big, flawed, dangerous team. And so, yeah, this could be a really, really, really fun first-round series. I think the Pistons absolutely have to come out and win tonight. But more importantly, I'm fascinated to see if they make an adjustment. What kind of, they have every game you go to, you make small adjustments, but will we see something major? Will we see a starting lineup change? Because my biggest takeaway was that JB Bickerstaff got outcoached that game. And here's the thing. I think they're good enough for him to come back and say, you know what? This is our fastball, guys. Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, 0 shooters on the court. Duncan Robinson, you run around out there and get hunted and things like that. That's our fastball. And just because we threw one down the middle and it got sent over the fence for a home run, we're still going to come back with our primary pitch. We still trust our fastball. I can respect that if you think the team is good enough, if your assessment is we're good enough. But if you go down that way, history shows us you're going to get flamed. You're going to get destroyed if you don't make any considerable change. So my big question going forward is like, what is that change? Do we see a starting lineup change? And personally, I don't know how you feel, Cody. I just don't know if these lineups with Duren and Asar Thompson are tenable, because it's hard to play with one non-shooter in today's NBA. They have 2 non-shooters, and they're just not getting enough back defensively to justify it.
Just to put a cap on the Magic part of it, if you look at, so there's 220 minutes that Suggs, Franz, and Paolo played together this season, right? In those 200 minutes, they're a plus 10, okay? And then you look at some of the other lineups. When you look at the lineups with Suggs and Wagner without Banchero, that's about 300 minutes. They're a plus 7. So that's not a lot of minutes, but that's at least like 500 some minutes throughout the season of this Magic season when, they were injured, not 100%, where they actually had some really strong lineups. So the breadcrumbs are there. The trail is there if you want to go down there and be impressed with it. So, maybe we shouldn't be so shocked to see a healthy Magic team actually putting up a good fight with the Pistons.
Well, if you extend it 2 years, they're +7. Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, when they're on the court, are +7.
Yeah.
So they still have missed a lot of time. It's only 1,000 minutes, but we know that when this team clicks and when this team works, they are more like a 50-something win team. So, yeah, I don't know if you have other thoughts strategically on this series, but that was the biggest takeaway to me.
Yeah, to talk about the Pistons, too, for a second. The thing with Jalen Duren, and I think maybe I fell too much in love with the stats and what I saw he was able to do without Cade Cunningham. But in the minutes that he played with Dennis Jenkins this season, when Cade was on the bench, he averaged like 27 points per 75 on like 70% true shooting, like something just absolutely absurd. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, so no matter what the Pistons do, right? Cade's on the court, Cade's off the court, Dennis is out there, because Duren doesn't play a ton of lineups without either one of them, right? I'm like, he's going to be able to get to his game. He's going to be able to get to his spots and whatnot. But you say the playoffs have kind of looked like the regular season so far. I just don't recall seeing a team be this schematically scrunched in against the Pistons this season. We've seen players kind of ignoring Asar and giving them spacing and stuff, but we haven't seen like, all right, let's bring it back to the 80s and see how you feel about this kind of spacing. And maybe it's because this is just the Magic in the way that, as you point out in the members only video, like Franz Wagner is able to switch back on Jalen Duren and he doesn't lose too much with the big man that's switching with Wendell Carter Jr. So maybe it's like a perfect mixture of like, we're going to take what you all have done and just maximize it because of what our roster allows. So I don't know. I think they're in a tricky position, like you say, because if you look at some of the best players on the team, you have Asar, you have Duren, you have Cade Cunningham. It's tough to say we can't play all three of you at the same time. And I kind of hope that they're able to schematically come up with something where they have tenable lineups where both Duren and Thompson are out there, because that's just how they were able to be so successful all season. But based on that first game, I just don't know what that would look like for them.
Okay, would you like to discuss next one of the 3-6 series? The last night's Nuggets-Timberwolves game being so late is a tough crunch for both of us today. But that series, along with the Knicks-Hawks, I think we both thought we're going to be the most competitive series in terms of the way the bracket shaked out. Or would you like to discuss the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets, who are playing this fascinating David versus David series? It's a very interesting series that they have going on right now.
Since we got 2 games of them and it's pretty fresh, let's actually go to that Hawks-Knicks series because I don't know. I think that's a really fun, like you said, schematically interesting one so far.
It is extremely fun. It is extremely interesting. I continue to be concerned about the New York Knicks and some of their defensive issues and some of their transition matchups and all this kind of stuff. And I thought the Hawks down the stretch did a great job of protecting whoever the Knicks were trying to hunt. For a little while it was CJ McCollum, but then down the stretch it was really a lot of Onyeka Okongwu. Let's bring him up into the pick and roll. And what Quinn Snyder was doing was he would sometimes show and recover. He would sometimes have 2 on the ball briefly. He would sometimes switch, but then we're switching, so we're going to send a double team and trap to see if we can trap or double out of the switch and recover and reset the matchups. Just a lot of different ways to protect what the Knicks were trying to attack and not leave Okongwu as being super vulnerable. And then you compare that to the other side of the court, and for most of the fourth quarter, until the Knicks got really cheeky with some really fun stuff in the final 2 minutes, the Knicks were just like, yeah, we'll give you Jalen Brunson if you want, and then we'll go from there, which always cracks me up because the Knicks freak out matching up who's Jalen Brunson going to match up with in transition. It breaks their whole defense in transition, trying to figure out where to put him. And maybe that's one of my big takeaways from watching the tape back over and over of all these transition matchups. There are certain teams where the Knicks are more fluid with who can match up with whom, like where one guy can go, the dominoes can fall somewhere else. But then there are other teams where they're like, oh gosh, OG Anunoby is the only person who can do this. And if anyone else is stuck on this player, everything falls apart. And the Hawks had a few, like when Jonathan Kuminga comes in the game and it's just like a bunch of big athletic dudes, you're like, okay, I guess CJ McCollum is the best place for Jalen. The only place for Jalen. I got to the end of the game and I'm just like, they should put Jalen Brunson on a Kongwu, and they should try that and see what Atlanta does, because they're freaking out about everything else. And that's to me, the big place to start.
I think that would be really interesting strategically, because I think you could maybe you could entice the Hawks to be like, oh, okay, we have the Okongwu-Brunson matchup. Let's try and take advantage as much as possible, get some posts up in seals and things like that, and trying to hunt that too much. I wonder if they would be able to be disciplined enough to avoid that and be like, no, we have to stick with our game. Brunson's not the only weak spot, because also there's so many plays where, like, Towns, I think you have a clip, Brunson's trying to like scram out of there and Towns is just oblivious to it. And just, going back to the thinking about the reason that somebody like Draymond Green was so high on I think the perimeter helper score, or maybe flexible defender. I don't remember which
defender,
one.
Yeah.
Is the flexible defender one, right? OG Anunoby is incredibly flexible. You can put him on basically anyone. He's going to cover a lot of bases, but I'm not seeing the communication that you would see from some of these truly top level guys like Draymond Green. And that to me is the subtle thing that's really hurting the Knicks, is there's not clear communication that's being followed through defensively. And like you say, in transition, which is that's where the Hawks are making their money, right? They grab and every one of their guys can just go. Every one of their guys, besides like Dyson Daniels, can spot up and hit a three and go to the corner. And Dyson Daniels like, oh, we're going to hide Karl Anthony Towns on him. Guess what? Dyson Daniels wants to fly up, set a screen, slip it, and make a pass out of there. Who's he passing to? Okongwu in the corner for another three, right? So it's this really chaotic, fast-paced sort of offense that even if it does slow down, hey, let's go to CJ McCollum. Jalen Brunson, you can't stay in front of him multiple possessions in a row, maybe carrying the ball, maybe doing some other shenanigans with the basketball that aren't legal. But at the end of the day, he was getting buckets, and Jalen Brunson couldn't do anything about it. And it's the thing that frustrates me so much. And I used to call it the Clippers so much more about this about 5 years ago, especially when they would play the Mavericks. They would just give up the switch and give up the switch and give up the switch. And they were doing that last night. Like, I think there were so many possessions where Mikal Bridges was on CJ McCollum, right? And then Brunson's guy goes up and screens, right? And then it's like, oh, I guess we'll just switch Brunson on to McCollum. And they just kept doing it over and over. I'm like, no, please fight over and try and do something different here. So, yeah, defensively, just a train wreck on so many different levels that I'm genuinely, like, pretty concerned about the Knicks going forward.
It's so interesting. The Knicks are the 3. You're concerned about them. The Pistons are the 1. I'm concerned about them. Yeah. I love the opening weekend of the playoffs. And you compare what you just said. On the other end of the court, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has multiple possessions where he's just fighting through the screen like his life depends on it. He's like, I am not leaving Jalen Brunson no matter what. You are not switching someone onto him. He is my responsibility and my responsibility alone. And this is like really the fun dynamic of the playoffs. What kind of chess match can you play? I actually thought Mike Brown made a brilliant adjustment in the game late with a minute or two left or something like that, where he finally put Anunoby on the ball. He finally put Anunoby on McCollum, and they hadn't shown this look all game. And I'm just like, maybe we should start the game with this look if we think it's probably our best look. Because I had another thought where OG Anunoby, they had these really fun matchups in this game, by the way. Everybody was cross-matched all over the place, and you got the centers on the small forwards and things like that. Because when you play the Knicks, a lot of teams will put their center on Josh Hart, and then they'll put some big athletic forward on Karl Anthony Towns. But it was really the Knicks on the other end who are doing the thing where they're like, yeah, Dyson Daniels is really your center. Yeah. So Karl Anthony Towns, like, I'm not guarding Onyeka Okongwu and going out to the 3-point line. Onyeka Okongwu is Mehmet Okur reincarnated. He's just out there bombing threes. That's all they want to do. Want to stretch and space the floor. So what that did all of a sudden, Cody, is I'm like, all right, so OG Anunoby, then who does he end up guarding, right? Who does OG, like, who did Anunoby spend most of the game on last night?
Oh, wow, you're calling on me for that. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's my point. That's my point. Good. Is when you stick him in the corner, it was you don't remember because he just spent the game in the corner standing near Onyeka Okongwu. And yes, Anunoby can be disruptive as a help defender. He's a good defender, but I want OG on the ball, or taking away one of your, like, if he had to guard Towns on the other team, if he was an opponent of the Knicks, stick him on Towns and ruin his night. Or get him near the nail and get him active so he can switch into actions and instead the Hawks are just like, you can go stand in the corner for the whole night, Mr. Alt Defensive OG Anunoby. And this is what I'm getting at with setting the matchups and changing things up. So I would not be surprised if the Knicks change their matchups from game 1 to game 2. From game 2 to game 3. The other thing is, at a certain point, the Knicks might want to consider just going back to something more similar to what they were running against like the Celtics last year, where they're just like, yeah, we're going to give up a lot of switches and we're going to mix things up. But since we know we're going to do that, we're going to tilt our defense around that and try to make you isolate with a particular player over and over again against Jalen Brunson. Last night, it just felt like they gave up the switch, but then they also weren't really doing anything behind, right? And it's like, okay, you're going to hug up to all the Atlanta shooters and let Jalen Brunson guard in space with no one around? That doesn't seem like a tenable strategy.
Yeah, that adjustment you're talking about there, OG Anunoby's on CJ McCollum, and what happens is they give up the switch, and like you said, this is a couple of minutes left in the game. They give up the switch, but then OG immediately goes up there, double him, right? Get the ball out of his hands, and maybe even live scram Brunson out of there. So obviously, what's the correct pass to make? CJ McCollum passes it in. I forgot who he passes it to in the middle there at the nail, but the point is as soon as the pass gets there, Josh Hart comes up, strips the ball, and I think Mikal Bridges picks it up. I'm like, okay, good. We're changing up the defensive scheme a little bit more. And that's exactly what needs to happen, because you saw that sort of thing multiple times from the Hawks throughout the game. Like their ability to go up there, they double, they maybe come back, somebody's recovering on the back end, they're all replacing all of their guys, and the Knicks are like, oh crap, that action kind of just didn't go anywhere. I think there was like 3 minutes left. We can talk about the offensive end. I know I'm being kind of hard on the Knicks here, even though they're up 1-1, but I don't know. I was displeased. I was displeased with New York Knicks basketball, Ben.
It's just so you know, it is tied 1-1. They do not have a 1-1 lead.
What did I say? Did I say they have a 1-1 lead?
1-1. Yeah.
Listen, glass half full
Optimism.
here. 1-1. Yeah. 1-1's a lead as far as I'm concerned. So there's like 3 minutes left, and there's this weird possession where Brunson dribbles it up, right? He brings it up, and there's like this soft trap when Josh Hart comes up and sets this screen, right? And then Brunson just kind of walks away, and then Hart has the basketball, and then Towns is in the corner, and he's just standing there, and everyone's like, okay, and now what do we do? And then Hart kind of dribbles over, and Brunson goes over and sets a screen, and Hart ends up taking like a pull-up three. That was the entire possession.
Oh, no, I know the possession you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that is okay. We have this in the video.
Okay.
Yes, that's the reason that happened is the Hawks knew the play. Yes, the Hawks knew the play, and the Knicks were trying to get Cat the ball in the post, and they had no second option. So when the Hawks knew the play and they took away Cat in the post, all that stuff you described at the start of the play, that's fluff. Okay? That's why the Knicks weren't looking to the other side of the floor. They were just thinking, we're going to get the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns in the post. And this is a really interesting dynamic to me when I think about championship level basketball. I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't know if we want to go on a full detour today. I'm happy to if you want, but I turn on these games and I just see certain plays and I'm like, that's not going to cut it in the finals. Right. And then I see other plays. And if people are ever wondering, this is why historically I'm so high on players like Larry Bird or Kevin Garnett. Someone asked once, who are the star players who are the little thing kings? Larry Bird was a star and a little thing king. That's why he's so good. That's why when these guys online, these people look up, they go to Basketball Reference and they're like, Cody, Larry Bird's true shooting percentage was negative 4.26. And that it's like, it doesn't matter that he missed an extra shot or two. He's out there like the hustle plays, the rebounds, the screens, the communication, these little tips, all that stuff. Kevin Garnett had that. And it's the same reason why Draymond Green is someone that we've been so effusive about over the years, because, you know, when Shaq calls him the triple single, it's kind of funny, but it's also awesome that a player who can average 9 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds can dominate an NBA playoff game. And meanwhile, you have players who can score 20 a night, are far more skilled ball handling or shooting from different spots on the court, so-called they can create their own offense, they can generate their own shot, and they're not half the player that he was. And it's the same reason why this year we spent so much time on Derek White, why Derek White was in our smartest plays of I just wanted to do Derek White smartest plays of the year, but the NBA was like, you can't just do Derek. That's ridiculous. You can't just do 10 or 15 minutes of Derek White doing smart plays. And I'm like, but I have 15 minutes of Derek White doing really smart plays. And so my point is, when the Knicks have a possession like that, what separates sometimes a good player from a great player? What separates sometimes a guy that can win in the first round versus what happens at the championship level in the third and fourth round is that play breaks down. The Hawks read the play. They know what's coming. And someone on the Knicks recognizes that and counters. And instead, everyone on the Knicks just was running the play. And it didn't work. And then after that, they didn't even have an idea for a backup option. In their defense, they're probably exhausted. That's probably why that happens. But that's also why, wait for it, motor is such a big deal. And when we talk about stamina and motor all the time, these are the things that are helping teams win at the highest levels. And it's what I'm looking for throughout the year when I go like, okay, yeah, Indiana Pacers, did you really just do like a triple switch into a peel switch with someone chase down steal and then save it out of bounds, and then you change the play call on the next? That was an incredible 40 seconds of basketball. That's what it takes to win in the finals.
So this is a deep cut, but I flagged this play earlier in the season as my least favorite play of the season. This is the WOT. This is the worst play of the entire season. Going back to a December 10th game between the Knicks and the Raptors.
Oh, it involves the Knicks. That's not good.
9 minutes left in the first quarter, and it kind of felt like the play call was like random, because it almost felt like they're trying to get ready for this kind of situation. They're like, all right, we usually have these kinds of offensive sets that we run. Let's see what you all can kind of figure out together here. And at one point, two of the players run into each other. It ends with like Brunson and Towns not sure what to do. And I think Brunson sets a second screen for a stagger screen for Josh Hart. And then I'm not even actually sure what Josh Hart ends up doing. It might be a turnover or a missed shot, but the whole thing is like probably the worst and most chaotic possession I've ever seen from a team that has championship hopes on offense. And that's all I could think about when I saw that particular play, because, and you know, you're throwing out these big names having motor on defense and things like that. Steph Curry himself, right? You see plays break down, and this is the magic between him and Draymond. It's like, well, I said a weird emphasis on Draymond with Steph and Draymond.
Like some people say that. Some people call him Draymond.
Draymond. Yeah. I think just the Midwesterner just got the best of me there. But if the play breaks down, it's like, okay, here's what I know I have to do. I'm going to throw it to this guy, and I'm going to run really, really fast towards him. And there wasn't any of that sort of thing. And it doesn't matter how much time is left. That's the kind of thing Steph Curry does all the time. And that's the kind of energy that you have to be able to pull forth when the chips are down in some kind of a playoff game. So I'm not even saying this necessarily coming at somebody like Brunson, but it could have just been anyone on the Knicks to be like, okay, this is clearly not working. Somebody like light a fire under me and we're going to go make something happen out of all of this. So I just don't know if the Knicks have shown a lot of creativity when the offensive set isn't like Towns, you're a passing hub at the top, or Jalen Brunson, you run some pick and rolls.
This is one of my big Celtics questions that we alluded to last week, because Joe Mazzulla calls so many plays, and yet I think over and over we've seen the value of building what Steve Kerr built with a read and react offense, building what the Spurs had, the beautiful game. Just, hey, we're going to flow from concept to concept to concept. It's one thing to call in the initial set. That happens, you know, because someone go to the elbow, or we're going to run some high pick and roll or something like that. But the Portland Trailblazers, Bill Walton, like, I want 24 seconds of flow. And the Pacers last year really put that in over multiple years. If you listen to Rick Carlisle and Tyrese Halliburton talk about this, this is something that they have put in over multiple seasons to entrust the players on the court. And so it never stops. That's why it feels like it never stops. It just goes from one play to the next play to the next play. And if we bring it back to New York, this is always why, or at least this year, why I've been a little more hesitant to consider them a team that could really come out of the East, or at least, like, if they came out of the East, I wouldn't see anything that said, okay, yeah, now they're at a level where they're going to be really dangerous in the finals. It's more like, it would just be like a puncher's chance to upset someone in the East, because I just see too many of these issues. Even going over the film last night, I thought Mikal Bridges just had a ton of off-ball weird decisions and miscommunications. And you mentioned OG. Maybe OG's a good communicator, but he's more quiet. Cat can be very spacey. You start to add all this stuff up, and it's like, boy, that's a lot. That's a lot there that has to go right for New York. So I still like them in this series. But these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about going forward with all the teams that I consider teams to be really dangerous to play multiple series in this tournament, and basically play the championship teams in the tournament. You know, if we talk about Boston, Denver, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City as our contenders last week, they're going to have to play New York, Minnesota, potentially a healthier Lakers team. Boy, wouldn't that be fun? Well, if the Lakers could find a way to get healthy, Cleveland Cavaliers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and so you talk about the randomness. Can we transition this to actually talking about the Lakers now? Because I think that's an interesting segue.
Perfect. Yes, a professional segue. Yeah,
it's a professional segue here because that's the sort of thing that I couldn't help but think when I was watching that Rockets-Lakers game. Is you have Marcus Smart out there. You have LeBron James out there. And we talked about the fact that like the spacing isn't tremendous. But both of them are incredibly wily, taking advantage of chaos types of passers that are just willing to try stuff, right? This is the thing where like you look at some of the best passers ever and you're like, oh, so-and-so averaged 4.5 turnovers per game. It's like, yeah, that's because when some of those passes make it, the like true shooting percentage is going to be like 95 for the teammate. It's the home run pass that they're just trying, right?
Yeah.
And that was on full display. Like that was the most, like Smart was great, but LeBron, like that was the most like, 45-year-old dad playing his JV kid in high school situation where you're like, why can't I stop this person who I'm so much more athletic than, and I'm more spry than, and I'm afraid that he might just like break down at any point. He's just beating me with his mind and his strength, and he's slowing it down to be his pace more than we've ever seen. So like that was a game that was just dominated through passing chops, and it was truly just a brilliant display from him.
Well, I asked Steve Nash about this concept about throwing extra turnovers and taking risks and things like that. And we talked about it a little bit, but one of the big takeaways that he pointed out is he said, I want that in the back of the defense's mind, right? I want you thinking that I might be throwing that pass. I want that to soften up other elements of the game or distract you or use up your bandwidth. And you see this when you play Nikola Jokic and you slow down the film against Nikola Jokic. And even though Nikola Jokic is a player around the league who makes passes no one else makes, you watch defenses against him and they're just like, all right, the second he gets, you got to worry about Aaron Gordon coming from left field and getting a lob. And who am I going to tag on the weak side? Do I take the shooter? Putting that in the defense's mind and adding that additional layer of pressure and complexity is another sort of element to what you're talking about there when we think about turnovers. Smart certainly has this where like Smart turns it over a lot, but he tries stuff. LeBron was absolutely transcendent. He almost had 10 assists in the first quarter. It was ridiculous. And then kind of fun stuff for the Lakers to get a really, really professional game from Luke Kennard. The shot making is one thing. We know Luke Kennard's a great shooter, but JJ Redick had a great quote about this. He said, we would rather Luke Kennard go 38% and take 8 threes a game than go 45% and take 3 threes a game. And so the shot making being there is nice, but I thought the rest of Luke Kennard's game was really professional, really clean, executing the scheme that the Lakers want to execute. And now you just get this quirky, fun, weird first round playoff series where who knows when Kevin Durant's going to come back. They're saying Austin Reeves might come back at the end of the series. He's ahead of Luka Doncic in his rehab. I have no idea who's going to be out there, who's going to play, but it could be fun to see, if the Lakers can keep doing this or if the Rockets can do it without Kevin Durant. That's basically where we're at.
The Luke Kennard thing feels like a really good a sign of leadership among the Lakers, right? Because Luke Kennard has always been one of these guys. You look at his numbers and it's like, oh my God, he's shooting like 50% on wide open threes. He's the best shooter ever. But then you look at the volume and it's like, why is he shooting like Al Horford in like 2018? Like, why doesn't he take a couple more threes? I feel like Al Horford comes up a lot when I talk about threes. I love Al Horford. I don't know why that's the case. But as the game progressed, like I thought early on in the game, there was even a couple of possessions where like, man, Kennard overpassed there. Like he probably should have taken that. By the fourth quarter coming around, like he was just like no conscious. I'm just going to be firing that. And I can't help but think that like the guys are in his ear. That's like, look around you, man. Like if we're going to win this game, if we're going to make this a competitive series, you have to shoot a lot. Right. And it doesn't matter if you're not wide open. It doesn't matter if Amen Thompson is going to try and fly over the screen to get you. You have to take this shot or else the whole thing kind of breaks down and you're going to swing it to somebody else that's not as comfortable taking that pull-up three. Right. And so I think that's a cool tip of the cap for them. For number one, Kennard to be like, okay, I guess I'll be the leading scorer on a team with LeBron James. And then, for him to, take some of those contested shots. So just all around great performance, I thought, from the guys like Kennard, like Ayton, like the other role players that the Lakers have.
I had another takeaway from that game, Cody.
Can I tell you another takeaway I had?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Is it positive?
No, it's not.
Oh gosh, mine's negative. I was hoping we could do a compliment sandwich and we could put mine in the middle. Okay.
This might be a compliment sandwich, but it's one of those where like, you have like the chicken, maybe you put an egg on top of it, right? I just had like an Argentinian sandwich, just like the best sandwich.
This sandwich sounds really good. Well, I don't understand the negative part of this sandwich.
No, I'm saying that like we can have two negatives in here, but somehow we can maybe encompass it with some positives too at the end, and the whole thing just comes out better. Right. I think that's how it can work. But watching the Rockets in offense, man, there's just so many possessions that ends with like Şengün catches the ball and he's 20 feet from the basket. And they're like, all right, dude, can you back it down until you take a little hook shot from like 8 feet? And there's just no creation of easy shots for this team, especially when Kevin Durant is not out there. Like Reed Shepherd's out there. He's firing from three. He's probably taking longer threes than he's super comfortable with. But he's kind of the driver of that sort of offense. But unless Amen Thompson is like blowing by somebody to get a layup, there's just not a lot of half-court possessions where I'm like, yeah, this Rockets team's really going to take advantage of an older Lakers team. So if they don't have Durant and Durant's not healthy, I'm not sure where offense is going to come from in this series.
Time for a quick quiz to make my point. Okay. I just looked. I had no idea. I had to look it up because per game stats to me are just, I never look at them. I have no idea what they are anymore. Per game stats for Amen Thompson. Do you know Amen Thompson's per game stats, points, rebounds, assists this year?
I'm going to take a guess.
Yes. That's what I'm looking for. A guess. I would have been wrong.
So points, rebounds, assists. I'm going to say 18, 8, and 5.
Yeah. Are you serious? That's correct.
Yeah. Is it really?
That's literally what it is. 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. That's amazing.
I don't even know what to say about that. I'm honored. I want to thank the crowd for being here.
How did you
in this moment?
That was ridiculous.
It just felt right. It was imbued upon me, Ben.
Okay, that's really interesting because if you had asked me, I would have said like 13, 7, and 3. And so this team obviously has no point guard, and they try to run more offense through him. Şengün averaged 6 assists a game. Reed Shepherd 3 off the bench. Kevin Durant and Amen Thompson 5 a game apiece. But man, Cody, in a playoff setting, that Amen Thompson offense, that's not working for me, man. And so we kind of talked about it this year in terms of towing the line of sub all-star and things like that. But to me, it's just like it's like the issues we saw with Ben Simmons years ago, where he was such a non-shooter. What does that mean in the playoffs? Except ratcheted it up like tenfold, because Ben Simmons was an absolute terror in transition. He was a great passer before all the stuff happened where the Monstars took his powers. But yeah, that was another takeaway for me. It's like I think Houston's got to try something different. You could try to turn the Amen offense into the Giannis offense and use him that way, but you can't do that if Alperen Şengün's the center. You need 4 shooters and you need shooting guards that can screen for him and things like that. So that was a small takeaway I had from that game.
I think something that hurts is just multiple times there's a shot that Amen Thompson loves where he goes right to left and he's going down, and he loves this like, maybe I should take a lefty, but it's actually going to be like this weird drifting floater type of shot. And when it goes in, it looks really spectacular, but I just don't know the percentage of that kind of a shot. But beyond that, the Amen Thompson offense that I actually like is I feel like there's a lot of times where I can freeze frame it and I'm like, wow, Amen Thompson just like appeared cutting to the basket. And if LeBron James was his teammate, that would have been a lob, or that would have been a laydown, and that would have been a layup. And I think like in the last minute and a half of the game, Şengün throws the best pass of the game. He does like this spinning, no-look laydown thing to Amen, and he makes the basket, right? I'm like, I just need a little bit more of that. I want to see more passing chops from the rest of them, and I think that's the weakness. Like Amen himself he's a good passer. Şengün, I always said, is a good passer, right? But when you have Jabari Smith out there, you have Tari Eason, you have Josh Okogie, none of these guys are opening up easy opportunities for their teammates, right? And so what Amen does so well in finding these little crevices and cutting to the basket just aren't taken advantage of at all, right? And you lose and you bleed a lot of value there where he can get value from grabbing offensive rebounds and getting some of those layups. So, you're right about the Giannis offense, but it just takes away the fact that he's so good at hovering around the basket and the dunker spot.
Really quickly, Celtics or Spurs, did either of those teams look as good as you thought, look worse, look better? Your feelings are the same after one game?
I'll be honest, I didn't watch a lick of Celtics. I checked in, I saw they were winning, and I'm like, all right, I think I got the gist of that one. Did you see anything that made you think differently about this?
No. I'm just curious if of our top teams that we haven't talked, we're gonna probably talk quite a bit about Denver and Minnesota next week. I imagine. I think that will be go ahead.
Do you want to talk about them at all? Because I watched game 1 pretty closely. I could ask you some stuff about game 2, and we could go from there.
No, I think we should save it for next week because I think that's going to be at least a 6-game series. Okay. I would be surprised if it was a 5-game series. And those teams, I want to say off the top of my head, they've played each other 30 times in the last 4 years, and Minnesota's 115 and Denver's 115. So we're just going to keep going. I think one of my biggest takeaways from last night's game, I have to rewatch it. I have to actually get into it. I was in a position where I was doing other stuff and eating food and couldn't really follow along the way I wanted to. But every time I looked up, I'm just like, oh, they're on game 26 of their playoff series. There are no adjustments. They just roll the ball out and play. And that's why if you listen to Minnesota after game 1, all the Minnesota players were like, yeah, we're going to win. And they were like, yeah, we just messed some stuff up. We're going to win. And they fell behind. Last night was a great game that you'll really enjoy when you catch up with it because they fell behind by like 19 points. There were 4 4-point plays in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game. The Nuggets had 4 4-point plays early in the game.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they got this huge lead. And then by like 6 minutes left in the second quarter, the lead was completely gone. And I was like, 20-point lead for one team, 20-point lead for the other team in the same game. This is a Wolves-Nuggets series. The series has when they say the series officially begins when the road team wins a game? It's like, no, it officially begins when one team blows a 20-point lead in one quarter. That's when we know we're back on track. So let's save the rest of that and the sort of ins and outs of that for next week. To support us, patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. That is the best way to do it. As I said, we have a ton of breakdown videos on these early game series, trying to understand what's happening in the playoffs. You can get those on YouTube or patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. We'll also have our playoff stat board up. We need a few games to get the data in, or it's all just nonsensical. Like I'm looking at some of the raw data right now, Cody, and Kaysen Wallace is plus 60 on court rating. Yes, it's a 60 outscoring teams by 60 points per 100 when he plays for Oklahoma City. That's, of course, because he's played only 21 minutes in one game. So hopefully by the next time we record, that stat board will be live once we get a couple games under our belt. Yes. Will you have something else to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I do. I think we still need to bring back the post show, like the classic post show.
We will work our way back into the post show. Yes. Did you have another basketball thought?
This is maybe the most important thing that I can't believe we didn't bring up.
Scoot Henderson.
No, but you're in the right game. The Drew Holiday toothpick situation.
My God. Oh, this has got to be the whole post show. How did we, out of all the weird things that happened this week, the NBC telling everyone the Knicks had a timeout when the Knicks didn't really have a timeout, and all this other stuff going on, Drew Holiday is what is in his mouth. I have asked people in the Portland organization. I just get like, that was strange. I just get like, what's going on with what's in it? Cody, can you explain? He's your favorite player.
Yeah.
Can you explain what is happening? I'm being gaslight. Right? Like they're like he's done this before.
Yeah.
I'm like, so maybe during this regular season a couple times, but what are you talking about? He didn't do this in the past.
If you find some like deep Reddit threads on like some Portland Trailblazer sites, they've kind of referenced that this is a thing maybe sort of recently, but what's happening, and you don't see it at first, is just a little bit wispy, but it seems like Drew Holiday is playing, and it doesn't seem like a toothpick. It doesn't have the straightness or the strength of it. It seems a little bit wispier, right? Like you're hanging out on the ranch and you get like a cottontail and you put it in your mouth and you're sitting there and you're like looking at the clouds. It seems kind of plastic and wispy. But I don't know. He's like playing the game in it. So like I keep asking him, like, is this like Michael Jordan chewing gum? But if he falls, is it like sharp enough that I can poke him, or can it poke other people? No one seems to be raising fusses about it. Like no one cares that Drew Holiday just has something in his mouth. But I have no idea what's going on, Ben, and there's no answer on the internet anywhere about this.
I have actually a real basketball concern about this beyond the safety. If it's really, really soft and pliable, then obviously I don't even know if it can poke your eye. It's so soft. But here's my question. Did you see every time he talked to the refs, he had to take it out of his mouth like a card shark taking the toothpick out of his mouth. He holds it in his hand like a cigarette as he talks to the ref, and then he puts it back in his mouth. So does that imply that he cannot talk with it? He has to hold it in his mouth. And if he's holding it in his mouth, how can he communicate on defense? I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand. We need a feature on this right now. This is where I missed this. Okay, Cody, a sidebar. Well, I got to whisper this so we don't get in trouble. Ooh. When I was growing up, there was a thing called journalism. And what it was a group of people who went out and tried to report this thing called news to other people so they would know what's going on so that they could function as a society. It's also probably a strange word we should define later for the audience, a society. And so the journalist would go and figure out and be like, hey, here's the entire story behind Drew Holiday's toothpick gate. And then you and I wouldn't have to sit up here like a couple of jabronis trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
So that job you just described to me, honestly, that just sounds like a great LLM write-off. Let's just let technology take care of all that. We don't need real people handling things like that. That can't be bad for this society thing you're talking about. Someone
is saying that a UFC fighter does this while fighting, which is even stranger to me. That doesn't he have a mouth guard while he's fighting? What's happening?
So that tells me that this thing can't be like particularly sharp or pointy, or else people would be freaking out, right? Like if I was playing basketball and someone just had like a toothpick sticking out of them, I'd be like, hey man, like you're gonna poke an eye out with that sort of thing. It's gonna, like, dad mode would come in. I'd be like, you're gonna hurt the back of your throat here. I don't want you to choke on anything. But this is probably the most important question going forward in the playoffs, and we really need an answer to this. Drew Holiday, who, if you remember, pushing the boundaries a few years ago when he would wear the ninja headband, right? That was peak Drew Holiday, and then they banned it. They're like, you can't do that. So Drew Holiday's he's just like, I'm trying to stand out in any way that I can over here.
Man, can we get the Michael Jordan chain back? Can we get that thing dangling around the neck? I mean, if they're going to allow this, whatever toothpick, not toothpick situation Drew has going, maybe we could get some more interesting stuff on the court. I don't know. This has been a great gateway drug back into the post show. Well, this is just warming us up for a more traditional post show that we can get back into whenever we feel appropriate. Yeah.
You don't want to do anything? You don't want to do like a quick check-in?
No, I got to get out of here. I mean, when you brought up that game, I thought you were going to say Scoot Henderson was impressive, and I thought it was great to see Scoot have really good minutes. And of course, Denny Avdia, look, it's fun. It would be really interesting if Portland can take one of these games and make it fun, because some of these series have been really fun, and some of them have been the Celtics and the Thunder looking like they're playing JV teams.
It has been fun seeing like Klingon starting on Castle, and he's just like standing like 15 feet back, and Wemby walks over and he sets a screen, and just like there's no movement. They're like, that screen's not going to do anything, and there's just kind of a record scratch. So that's been interesting. I want to see how they try and adjust to that kind of thing. Klingon's huge, by the way. Like, he might be the only guy in the NBA that when he's next to Wemby, you're not like, wow, that is a child next to Wemby. Klingon's a massive human being.
Victor Wembanyama is the leading scorer in our database after the first weekend of the playoffs, averaging 41 points per 75 on plus 19% true shooting. That's why we don't do one-game stats. All right. Thanks for listening all the way through on this one. Hope you enjoyed it. And, of course, that you are enjoying the playoffs and having a great day.